My name is Emma Donnelly with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program, and I'm speaking virtually with Tripp Pomeroy on November 16, 2020. Thank you for talking with me today. Could you please begin by introducing yourself, Sweetwater, and your role there?
Great. Well, thank you for having me and inviting me on behalf of Sweetwater Organic Coffee. I'm the CEO and I'm a co-owner. And I work with a great team of 5 other people in Gainesville, Florida.
Great. How would you characterize Sweetwater Organic Coffee to someone who has never heard of it?
Well, Sweetwater is a unique coffee roaster in that we are an importer, we are a roaster, we're a wholesaler, we're an online retailer. And we are very much what I would consider kind of a community roaster from crop to cup. And I would say the big differentiator that we use to help people understand what we're about is that how we buy our coffee matters. So when I say we're an importer, we are a cooperative importer. We work with 22 other coffee roasters from the Yukon all the way down to Gainesville, Florida, where we are, over to Austin, Texas, up to Minnesota. We work collectively and have been for 20 years to buy coffee directly from small scale farmer-owned cooperatives. And we roast only specialty grade, fair trade, organic shade-grown coffee. And I would say the last thing that defines who we are, quality is critical, just great tasting coffee. Because you can't communicate the other messages if it's not great coffee. But basically, we abide by the principles of fair trade as articulated by the Fair Trade Federation. And then the terms of trade, how we buy our coffee and treating farmers the way they should be, are industry-changing terms of trade that have to do with prompt payment, minimum prices that are industry-leading, and transparency.
So one question I'm asking everyone, just to get sort of some insight into your personal experiences with coffee. What's your earliest memory drinking coffee?
Wow. I was not a big coffee drinker in college. So college for me, I graduated in 1988. It would have to be probably living in Paraguay. Where I went down to open a consulting firm's office and discovered the beauty of sitting in a little street side cafe and drinking a little double shot of coffee. And I just kind of liked the whole culture around it.
How did you first get involved in the coffee business?
Well, this becoming involved in, and I'll use Sweetwater as the main one. I had been involved in some international ventures before I became a partner in what is our sister roastery, Cafe Campesino, up in Americus, Georgia, and Sweetwater Organic Coffee. Basically, through the idea of trying to build my experience. All right, so here I'll try to get to the point. I was a volunteer with Habitat for Humanity in 1989. I met my current partner bartending at night, and that was in 1989. We remained friends. In 2003, he called me and said, "Hey, my brother started this great coffee company, but we need somebody to run it." And so I had been studying international development. I'd got my master's in international development. I'd managed landscaping companies, and it was just this. When I finally understood what he was talking about, the opportunity to come in and run this coffee company, what he was talking about was a place for me to actually use my management experience and my bilingual, although rough bilingual Spanish, and merge it with my master's work, which was international development. And so it was this opportunity to bring them together. And I share that because when I was a volunteer with Habitat for Humanity, my volunteer position was public relations, but you never know where things are going to lead you. And so over the years, led me back and into this great opportunity with coffee and working directly with small scale farmers and other roasters to change the way things work in the coffee industry.
Could you describe your role at Sweetwater, like your daily and weekly involvement?
So daily, yeah, my role as CEO, I mean, we're a relatively small company. So we have our roastery on 1331 Main Street in Gainesville, and I work with the team there. We have location manager, our roaster, two production assistants or production leads actually, and our delivery guy. And they run the show day to day. My job is to support with sales, support with general management, to help maintain connections with the community. And I would say one of my biggest roles there, and they run it so well, it gives me opportunities to do this kind of thing, which is to share our story and our identity with the Gainesville and surrounding community. And just for kind of a clarification, we were approached in 2008 by the former owners of Sweetwater, and about they wanted to move on, and we were aligned on that treating coffee farmers right is critical. And we actually bought Sweetwater from them in 2008, and it gave us an opportunity to move, really good name and really good reputation for coffee, but start sourcing all of the coffee through our co-op. And so that's just, since 2008, my job was to get Sweetwater kind of integrated with our purchasing system and our purchasing community. And 2 years ago, Sweetwater in Gainesville hosted our co-op's annual meeting, which was really a blast to have all these people, like I said, from the Yukon and all around North America come to Gainesville and Sweetwater in particular to meet as a co-op, including a lot of coffee farmer reps came to that meeting. So that's a lot of what I do.
So what's it been like working with so many different farmers in the midst of the pandemic?
Well, it's interesting. When the pandemic first hit in March, I remember I flew out of Gainesville Airport to go up and see my mother, who had been sick, and I flew back and the pandemic started. Like it was Friday the 13th, I flew back into Gainesville. And I remember what seems like really kind of 90 days, 120 days, where we didn't have the bandwidth to think about our trading partners. And, and before then, before COVID hit, we were, day to day, week to week, month to month, really kind of closely connected with our trading partners, but it forced everybody, including them, to kind of regroup. And so it put a pause on the regular communications with our coffee farming partners because they were doing what we were doing, which was adapting to this shock, right? And I would say, so we just had our co-op's annual meeting about 4 weeks ago virtually. And it was about then that we started slowly but surely to kind of reconnect with our trading partners on a meaningful basis to get feedback about what's happening in Colombia, what's happening in Peru, what's happening in Guatemala. And I would say that it's we've restored the communications. Our model is nice because it provides security for both of us in terms of coffee supply, and it requires that we remain in communication. The rub comes with two things. One is keeping abreast of the situation at the various origins and how the coffee is or is not able to flow to the ports, for example. How the members of each co-op, the farmers, are or not able to move their coffee for processing. But what we've also seen in COVID is our trading partners, and we've really learned this in the past 60 days, are really struggling with access to basic needs like food. So our co-op has an impact fund, and we voted as a co-op to allocate, I think it was about $120,000 to a COVID relief fund that's going for everything from food security loans to funding for providing hand washing equipment, supplies, and training to the farmers in the co-ops. And I would say we're kind of getting back into our mode of collaboration, but there is a real COVID is kind of the is what we're all revolving around. From everything from the coffee supply and what we can anticipate to supporting them in weathering the storm.
So in the more local or sort of youth side of things, how has the pandemic affected Sweetwater?
Well, it really depends. We've got a lot of great resellers of Sweetwater, right? I mean, we've got, the folks at Ward's who, as a grocer, they've certainly had to deal with an awful lot, but they've kept the doors open and they've kept it moving. And I would say, keeping fairly steady on the coffee at a swift clip. But then you have, some coffee houses, especially those that really, relied on dining in, that were really hit hard. I mean, we have a coffee house up in Georgia that got hit relatively light, and it's down about 20 to 25%. In Gainesville, Jacksonville, Tampa, the places that could easily shift and pivot to carry out seem to have recovered and stabilized. I wouldn't say it's growth, but it might be getting back in some cases to sales levels from a year ago. But we're all very precariously perched, waiting to see what happens with the next 4 to 6 months, as most everybody is, right? But there are some customers of Sweetwater's that have thrived, and there are others that have had to close. And there's a lot in the middle, just kind of, like I said, on the edge.
So as far as employee procedures, what changes have you all had to implement?
Oh, day one. So the first thing that we had to confirm is, are we part of critical infrastructure so that our employees would be permitted to travel to and from their homes to work? So part of the beauty of being part of this purchasing co-op is one of the other members up in Michigan, or it was Minnesota, sent all the members saying, hey guys, we're all critical infrastructure. Here's what you need to do. And so we developed permits for staff to carry that were never really needed. The biggest adjustment was safety. And we had to adjust very quickly. And so the first thing is safety, making sure everybody is okay. And then 2, developing kind of a screening protocol when people come to work. But then the big Sunday night, I can't remember which Sunday it was, we had the work plan up for the week, and then we're like, nope, we need to segregate teams. So at Sweetwater, we had to have A and B teams so that we would not have everybody in the same facility in case one person got sick or had to quarantine. So we were pretty quick, and we successfully rolled out A and B teams, and were able to do work from home for one of our staff in particular. And then when one team was working, the other team could be at home. By and large, we did that. But I mean, across our whole company, I mean, we had to adjust our finances. We had to learn very quickly how the PPP program works, how the medical leave works if it's COVID related. And I feel like everybody just dropped everything and did a great job tackling a very steep learning curve and implementing the change. And knock on wood, we haven't had a day, and everybody is healthy. And now it's just a matter of maintaining vigilance. Masks. And it's not just about air ventilation. It's really, well, yeah, it's not about air circulation. It's about air ventilation, distancing, and we're very cognizant of all that.
So I always like to wrap up by asking if there's anything else you'd like to add that we haven't discussed so far.
Oh, wow. It's interesting because, you pivoted to COVID, right? And I think that maybe the only thing I would add is that as people think about how they buy their coffee and see the chaos that COVID is creating in our lives, I think what we really had to grapple with, all of the unknowns, the variability, no longer being able to plan on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, right? And I think it drove home for us that this has given us a little bit of a taste, a big taste of what it must be like to operate how our trading partners have been operating for years, which is lots of volatility, interruptions to normal flow of life, whether from politics, from socioeconomic issues, or instability. And I think this reinforces more than ever this whole experience with COVID. And I think most people would agree that, within Sweetwater, we've never needed each other more. And that, relationships do matter. Relationships with our great customers who have taken care of us, staff members taking care of each other, taking care of your neighbors, and keeping an eye out and helping people get through this, because 6 degrees of separation with COVID, a friend of a friend of a friend, and all of a sudden everybody's connected. And I like to think, and I think everybody at Sweetwater would agree, that our friendship and the human relationship with each other and being connected to our farmers has helped us kind of get through this. Not alone. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk today.
Thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Well, have a good one.
You too. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.